Hello everyone. So we have learned how to find the zeros of the functions that we've been given. And the zeros are nothing more than our x-intercepts. But one thing that hasn't been gone over and I think that needs to be addressed is how to find the zeros of a cubic function. And one of the ways is to factor by grouping. So I want to cover that and show you an example. Given the polynomial x cubed minus 2x squared minus 9x plus 18. The first thing you need to do is group your terms in pairs. With similar factors, for this problem, terms are already grouped. So I can simply make two groups. Again, whenever I have to move around my terms, the sign that is in front of the term goes with that term. But this one, it's already written to where I can use it. Then you're going to factor individually those two terms. So factor out the terms in each pair. For the first one, I can factor out an x squared because both terms in that pairing have at least an x squared in there. So I factor out an x squared and that leaves x minus 2. For the second pairing, I can factor out a negative 9. I pull out a negative 9 and that leaves x minus 2. This is the key premise right here, is that what I have remaining after I've done my factoring from both pairs is a similar term. That is the key principle. If I turn around and I rearrange or I use what I have and I pair them up and I factor out and I cannot end up with the same term, then factoring by grouping will not work. The next thing I do is I factor out that similar term. I take the x minus 2, because both of these share it, there's multiplication going on between them, and I factor it out. So that gives me an x minus 2 times x squared minus 9. I have factored by grouping. So on this step, I am actually pulling this out from both of those so that x squared goes over here with the 9, and there's multiplication occurring between those terms. Now, down here what I've written is that I could have rearranged. I could have taken my original function and rearranged it. So if you notice, I rewrote it to where I have x cubed minus 9x minus 2x squared plus 18. On this one, I factored out an x, leaving x squared minus 9. On this one, I factored out a negative 2, leaving x squared minus 9. Again, this is the key premise. Same problem, different way of factoring it. I have the same term. That allows me to factor out that x squared minus 9 from both of those, because my only mathematical operation that's left is separating these two terms now. I can factor that out. I'm left with x squared minus 9 times x minus 2. This and this are the same function. Commutative property. Multiplication is commutative. So whether I wrote x squared minus 9 last or x squared minus 9 first, it doesn't matter. And again, for this one, I can now solve for the zeros. So, group in terms, you're going to make two groups. You're going to factor out the terms in each pair. What can I factor out of the first pairing? What can I factor out of the second pairing? In doing so, I should end up with a term that is the exact same in both of those pairings. Then I factor it out. So, an example for you. Pause the video. See if you can end up with the same answer that I end up with. Alright, I will leave my grouping the same. So what I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at 3x cubed plus x squared. And with that, I can factor out an x squared. So I factored out an x squared, that leaves 3x plus 1. And then my other grouping will be this. And I'll block them off. On this one, I can factor out a negative 16. The reason I chose to factor a negative is because I know it's going to end up making the term inside the parentheses the same. That gives me a 3x plus 1. And the key premise after factoring each pair of a common term, I end up with a common term in both of those pairs. I now factor that out. I pull out a 3x in both of them. Whenever I do that, that leaves me only with x squared minus 16, and what I had factored out was 3x plus 1. We can verify 3x times x squared is 3x cubed. 3x times a negative 16 is a negative 48x. 1 times x squared is x squared. 1 times a negative 16 is a negative 16. Rewrite in standard form. Three x cubed, x squared, minus 48x, minus 16. Same functions. Okay guys, please watch the instructor's videos. Critically think, structure your work, read your textbook, and if you have questions, please let me know. Good luck with your homework.